And Jimmy was supposed to go sit with the are they called trustees in Kansas? Commissioners, village? Anybody know?
No, doesn't make any difference. We know what
The
you're
village
talking about.
commissioners or trustees or whatever, they had a meeting last Wednesday, but you remember the weather was really bad, so we don't know if they had a meeting. So anyway, that's, between now and the meeting, I'm hoping to have an agreement to put in front of you guys to try to get them to split the cost with us. That's a possibility. The other possibility is, on item number 7, we're talking about a public involvement meeting. There is a chance, I think it's unlikely, but there's a chance I'll ask the board if they want to show support for seeking OSLOD, Open Space Land Acquisition and Development, ITAB, Illinois Transportation Enhancement Program, or DNR recreational and bike trail money. Because 3 of those opportunities end March 1st or March something, before I get to be in front of you guys again. So I might have, see if the board supports seeking money for alternative forms of transportation out by the high school. So number 3 is the only one you're gonna see for sure. You're gonna award the I might ask you to help split enter into an agreement with Kansas to split costs on the overreach on the Ike project, and then I might ask for a resolution of support from the board to see if you guys support pursuing money for enhancement projects out there. Any questions on next week's board agenda items?
So with this on this, the county trailways and Greenlands, you said there's a possibility of 3 different,
Yeah, there's 3 that I've
3 different-
identified.
and that they may do all or in part, or we have to sign on that just that we're interested, or are
Yeah.
we putting money toward it? or-
No, yes, you would eventually. What these grant holders like to see is that I'm not out there trying to seek money that my board doesn't support. So like if you guys go 4-3 or something, that makes it a bad one. So if the board unanimously supports us pursuing grant opportunities, it helps when they get into the selection process.
But we'll still have another vote to go at it. I mean, this isn't
Well, no, this would be
a final approval?
just approval to apply.
Right.
Oh,
Yeah, then we're years out
That's
of it.
what I'm saying, just the
Yeah.
applications.
Right.
So it's kind of a commitment. You're saying you'd be
Right.
willing to make the match.
But things could change. too.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And if we're iffy on that, I'll just throw off, we got close last year and pulled back, and we're a lot further along on development of this, but we're still not, we don't have the coordination that we'd like to see with like the school and the city, and so we may end up waiting another year to go after it. Any other questions, Alan? Did that answer your question? If we do go, they'll want to see that you guys support it. Okay, number 4 is the FY15 TARP projects. They still have not formally announced. I can assure you that we got Scotland Road, and I've been told that we're getting High School Road, but it's not been formally approved. So FY15 TARP projects are still unofficial. Gary? Unofficial. Didn't make it all that math. I was telling everybody that we have money that we don't. Okay, number 5, local projects update. Cherry Point Road cold mix, the Cherry Point Road. We are trying to hot mix from the railroad tracks there near Stidle to just 500 foot west of the high school road, and then we're trying to cold mix the rest of it. That is an FY14 TARP project. I'm going to talk about when it says CM Cherry Point Road cold mix, we're still shooting to do that this year. Doesn't mean it will happen, but we're trying to do both pieces of Cherry Point Road this year. Half of it with cold mix, half of it with hot mix. Kansas Bridge opened. I think this is the last time we'll talk about that as of leading up to it. Kansas Bridge is our TVP project this year, and I assume we'll have a pre-con in the next few weeks, and if the weather ever breaks, we'll start that one. Preston Road, the big pipes out there behind the shop, or the culverts for that project, that's a CATV project that you guys approved a long time ago with Sims. It may start this spring. Redmond Road is still in development, and it comes up a lot when we talk about just so you guys know, as far as framing it, however many years ago, someone took concrete out to, I call it Akins Road or Barclays Road. It's got another name, Moody Road. And if things go well and 15 more minutes,
No.
we want to go hot mix to 500 foot past the high school, and then basically it'll be cold mix the rest of the way to Redmond. So you'll have a nice improved county highway all the way to Redmond. But instead of the concrete that stops at 1200, it'll actually be hot mix that stops just west of the high school road. Make sense? And most of the right of way's been bought on Redmond Road already. I guess the state was gonna bring 133 through there many, many years ago. So it's still in development. People ask you what we're doing. We're in the preliminary stages of improving that roadway all the way to Redmond, if we get TARP money. And we got TARP money for the first piece already. Prairie's Edge, that's the new truck route around Paris. That jurisdictional transfer is complete. That also has bike amenities or multi-use path amenities attached to it. So that improvement would go hand in hand with enhancement project Sunday. County Highway 12, that's south of Kansas. I don't have a nickname for that yet, but it's the dangerous hill down by the county line that we've talked about a couple times. That's been surveyed and we're just looking at it. It would probably come at just pure cost to the county. So if we ever get to where I'm coming to you for that project, it'll be right out of your pocket. I don't see help coming for that one. Vermillion Road cold mix, we hot mixed all the way to 500 last year on top of the stimulus job, and now we're gonna cold mix all the way into Vermillion. We're gonna turn the corner there at the elevator and go to Water Street. So we'll improve one intersection. We're very aware that the intersection with the county highway and the house problems down there, we're very aware that that's there, and we see it being cost prohibitive to fix it right now. Shiloh Road cold mix. Oh, by the way, Vermillion Road cold mix probably won't happen this year, if people are asking it. The Shiloh Road cold mix, that's putting cold mix on top of the concrete that's out there. That's still likely for this season. Scotland Road shoulders and tarp, don't be misled, I wish Ben was here. We're going to improve the shoulders out there first, and then we'll do the tarp in the fall. So when you see activity out there this spring, it's just shoulder work. The larger project happens in the fall. High School Road Bridge, and High School Road crossing can get very long-winded, and I'll make it short. High School Road Bridge basically is done. There's a possibility of a pedestrian bridge if the money comes. The High School Road itself, and let's go to crossing next. High School Road crossing, we submitted the environmental survey report request, and we're hearing there's hot spots out there, which is bad news, which is costly. Just railroads in and by themselves are hot spots and sometimes require PEASs, which are preliminary environmental site assessments, but there's also a train spill that was out there. So that could be a problem. I just recently found that out.
How far away, if that train spill was 100 yards south, 200 yards south, or 300 yards south?
Yeah, I think it was at least.
Does that make a difference on our actual messing with that railroad?
What it does is, if there's a hot spot, it basically drags things down, even if it's 300 feet away. First of all, there's two things. One, the railroad, and I guess they drop acid and all kinds of stuff. And anytime you cross a railroad with an environmental survey request, almost always you get someone that wants to look closer at it. To magnify the problem, there's also a hot spot south of there, and to make it as broad as I can, that equals delay. Okay, just not as far as remediation costs, I don't think there are gonna be any. But just like Indiana bats or anything else, if there's a breeding ground or a wetland or something in the area, it typically causes paperwork and a lot of it. So
Even though it doesn't fall within the scope of our project.
they want to plan, like, if there's prairie grasses, there's all kinds of things that are within it. They want us to put a plan together that
No, I
says we won't
understand
get out
that.
on it. And so, I don't know yet, it's early. I'm telling you, early indications are somewhat negative, that it's gonna take a little bit longer. We had told the school, and we had hoped to be out there with day labor this season, because we're gonna close the road, we're gonna do some widening, and this threatens that greatly. And I'll just keep you up to date, and every time we meet, I'll tell you this is where we're at on that. We're always optimistic, and we're always saying that we're going to do something, but like I told Connie and Lorraine last week, we can only control what we control, so it gets to where it's out of our control. Same thing with like the high school road crossing money. We have no control of the timing of that anymore. We push and badger and work on people, but we do not have control of when it happens, so. So that's where the high school road is. The best thing to hear from me is we're doing everything as quickly and humanly possible in our department. We're not dragging our feet on anything. We're working as fast as we can to try to have that thing ready for school. Brockton hazard mitigation plan's going good and interesting. That's that money we spent on BLA to study to do a hydraulic model, and found it very interesting that the ditches that are coming out of east headed west aren't carrying much water. So the old wives' tale that all this water that comes from the east is flooding Brockton is actually not true. Found that interesting. It's a small part of the problem, but the larger problem is the water that comes out of the north, and the fact that Brockton sewers are dilapidated and undersized. So that's coming to fruition. We're hoping to get to a point where we can ask for money on that. I'm gonna say by summer, that should be wrapped up, and we should be to a point where we can apply for some hazard mitigation money.
All right.
Multi-use path, there's the three areas I'm looking at, Alan. Open space, land acquisition development, recreational trails, and bike path through DNR. I didn't include ITEP with IDOT. There's one more ITEP with IDOT. So, any questions on local projects? On any of those projects we talked about? Any breaking action? Dagan? Nothing. Federal program, number 6. Science project is basically suspended until the weather breaks. It's gone real well. We got the southeastern part of the county to finish, and it'll be done. Kansas Ike Underground, we talked about that already. B&T's got punch list items to finish when the weather breaks. Foyt's was low on the restoration project, the $400,000 project. They're trying to get an early start. We're receptive to that. So I'd say when the weather breaks, you'll see a lot of activity out there on the Ike project. Heelan's Dip, we got design approval just recently. We're buying right away. We hope to do that this fall. Again, we don't have control. Farnham's Bridge is still on a June letting. That's a large project, about a $650,000 project that will start in the fall. Major Bridge, that's the big one in Sims that we got Major Bridge money on. It's scheduled for a June 2015 letting. The lower T at Walmart did open. It came in under engineer's estimate. It opened on 1/17. Nico got that project. It's an inlay at Walmart with recessed pavement markings, etc. Clinton Road Urban, that's the piece from just east of the tracks to help me.
Here.
No,
How long will that?
Alan, come on.
Coming west past into town towards
By
Weir's.
Weir's.
Yeah,
The
that's
hospitals.
Eads Avenue right there.
Eads. It's Eads.
Yeah.
Anyway, from 700 foot east of the tracks to Eads.
Will that be closed for a period of time?
No, Clinton Road will not be closed. It'll be messy. It'll be an inlay. So where the gutter starts at Allenwood into town, it'll be an inlay just like Lower T. So the Lower T and the Clinton Road jobs will get you some calls probably. So,
Is that one that we actually have now?
yes,
Or not? And that was a part of
the jurisdiction transfer.
transfer. And we're having to do that work, or is the city doing it?
No, we're doing it. Back I'd say 6 to 10 months ago,
I remember when they all came down, I thought there was something about they
There
were gonna
was.
do some work
There
first, or
was.
possibly they were doing work first, and we were gonna
yeah.
take it over, they were paying us to do the work, or something like that, but.
No, the deal we had swung, to refresh what Alan's nibbling on here, we basically traded Cherry Point Road for Prairie's Edge. So the Cherry Point Road after the tracks as it comes to Blackburn, we basically traded the city that for Prairie's Edge.
I got
And
it.
then we traded the high school road for the Clinton Road. And we had a signed letter of intent that the board, both the city man, or the mayor and the board chairman signed a letter of intent. So high school road for Clinton Road and Cherry Point Road for Prairie's Edge. Well, the city backed out of the the Clinton Road, high school road one. The city didn't want to do that in June. They
Right.
said, we're not interested.
That's what I was trying, quite honestly, that's why I was trying to figure out why this is ours then.
Oh, it's still ours, it's our jurisdiction. The city's left us, where that's been left is the city said, we don't want you to take jurisdiction of the high school road after all. And furthermore, we don't want to take jurisdiction, we don't want you to take high school road, and we don't want to take Clinton Road. So we were gonna improve Clinton Road whether they took it or not. Any other conversation on that? So
That's
really,
what
we
it
have a
was.
letter of intent
That's,
that,
that's what the deal was, that's what was running around in there before we did that. Thank you.
Horace Brockton Road's an April letting, that's all 13 miles for pavement preservation. That's a very large project, $1.5 million worth of resurfacing from corporate limits of Brockton all the way to Route 1. Cherry Point Road hot mix asphalt, we talked about the cold mix. Now we're doing a federal program. The federal program's gonna do the hot mix asphalt. It's scheduled to let in August. And we've already talked about the Kansas Ike restoration already open, and it was a $400,000 job that Ford's got. Any questions on federal program? Number 7, probably a year after I came, we had a capital improvement program, public involvement, public input meeting, and we're gonna do that again. With the reason being, we've got a large program, 1, and 2, if we're going to seek any of this enhancement money, it's a requirement. So, right now, I'm wanting to get the Farm Bureau again, wanting to have another public involvement meeting, and it'll be 2-pronged. In the history books, it'll go down as a public information meeting for the enhancement, and that'll be the first half hour. And then the second half hour would be the capital improvement plan. Any comments on that? I thought that went well last time.
Where's that money coming from?
Which one?
That on 7, you're talking about that, and you said you'd be seeking funds.
Oh, the first half of the meeting's for enhancement. We're looking for OSLOD, rec trails, bike trails, ITEP money for a possible multi-use path out by the high school.
Okay.
I kept,
So the DNR or IDOT, they're both federal dollars
Okay.
through one of 4 programs that we've identified. And Mike, since you came late, there's a chance at the next board meeting, we're gonna ask for the county board to pass a resolution of support to seek this money. So if you guys are split at all, really, almost even if 1 or 2 of you are gonna vote no, I'd just soon not do it. So this would be a good time for that dialogue. We're not convinced we're doing it.
Why would we vote no?
Why would you vote no?
Yeah.
Because there's a match. You have to pay some of it.
I was gonna ask,
Like
Do
Oslo's,
you know what percentage, just off the top of your
if it's
head?
right away, it's 50-50. If it's capital improvements, it's 80-20. And typically, if we use day labor, the way we had success in the past is we use day labor and 80%'s 20.
How much
Does
is
that
that
make
you
sense?
talking, rough ballpark?
It'll be over $1 million. It'll be, it'd probably be, it
For
depends
the
on if we do
trailway
it phase.
thing?
Mhm. It would start down here at Springfield, it would go all the way up Prairie's Edge, then it would turn the corner, then it would cross Cherry Point, come past Blackburn, then it would go across the lake there on Kenny's property, It would also go up to the bridge that we finished, and there'd be a pedestrian bridge there. And there'd be a multi-use path that goes all the way to.
Have you budgeted for it?
The answer's no. It's not budgeted.
There'd be lighting involved,
No, we
signage.
couldn't afford it. Yeah,
Okay, I didn't know, you talked originally about some
they
lighting.
would love it. Yeah, we've looked at the existing poles out there and thought about hanging lights. What we decided when we did the Cherry Point, or the Clinton Road ITEP, and this, Alan, this goes back to what you were talking about, and that's why kind of the city got cold feet, I think. We had pedestrian lighting on the the Clinton Road enhancement project. That one was like $1.5 million. We went after it for a couple different years, but we don't really want to get in the lighting business. The county doesn't. Right, Jeff?
No, not really, but
And you guys may not want to get in the alternative forms of transportation business. And it's a political question. I'm suggesting after 5 years of planning for it, that it's something you ought to consider.
Is this the thing also that Eastern has done a
Yeah,
lot of
Eastern's
work
still
with?
working on it. They'll present. Eastern and Massey would both be at that meeting. I hope you guys would all come. And they would start, the first half of the meeting, they'd talk about, look at all these wonderful things that we can do with trails, and these are the plans and where we're at on it. And give the public the opportunity to say, that's, what a waste of money, we're broke, and this is crazy.
If
Or
we,
say it's great.
if we create this, what's it gonna cost us to maintain it? Do you have any figures?
Mhm.
Would it actually be used that much? That's why that would be my question.
Yeah, I think that's a wild card. My opinion is, if you're an aggressive board, you'll see it as an opportunity to create growth. And I also see it as low maintenance, multi-use path, very, very low maintenance. You know, you can even let them go. They encourage, improved surfaces for ADA, for handicap, but they don't require it. So, I've got a young family, and then we'd use it to death. We'd come from out in the country and use it to death. We trailer. So, I think it's your constituency and your guys' job as a board to decide if this is a worthwhile investment.
Does this connect to the railroad right-of-way across the state idea that's,
Across the state.
well, one time weren't they trying to use some of these old railroad right-of-ways?
Yeah,
that were-
rails to trails.
Yeah, and
It's
our
the same.
connection.
Mhm.
Okay,
would it be not easier for the board maybe to attend this meeting? And do we need to give you a vote before the meeting? I mean, we might understand more about what's going on once we hear the whole thing.
You'd want a presentation with just the
Well,
board
I'm just
first.
saying, it would be, certainly make us, I think, feel more strongly one way or the other on it.
You're saying going to the meeting at the Farm Bureau, not having a,
Yeah,
meeting
that's what
here,
I'm saying,
special
and
meeting.
a
Oh,
judge.
you mean kick off early with you guys before we bring the public in?
no,
No,
no.
I'm sorry,
No.
try one more time. I'm not listening very
you're gonna have this meeting.
Capital improvement.
You're
plan.
talking about maybe having us vote at the next meeting on this.
Correct.
I'm asking you to wait to have us vote until after this meeting,
Okay,
so we can make an assessment of what's going on,
Understood.
see the presentation, and also feel what the public thinks about it.
understood. We just lose another year. That's the only.
Because you
problem.
said March 1st is your
Yeah.
deadline.
Yeah,
I
could go
see,
wrong.
okay.
oh, we got it.
Okay, well, that's
I
fine.
think or wasn't that this one, or not? Okay.
But I don't wanna pressure anybody.
Yeah.
I'm not really that ready. I mean, we've been working on it for 5 years, but
Mhm.
it's a pretty large commitment. Well, it's politics. What you're gonna get people saying the federal government's broke, the state's broke, the county's broke, and you guys are building paths. That's the politics that'll come, that typically comes. But if you get into more progressive communities, they have them. And the thing is, I remember Monty Stillman always says, it's still my tax money, and he's right, but if we don't get it, somebody else will. That's just how I see it.
How much difference would it make if we didn't necessarily do this before this March 1st? You had another year to work on it. We have another year of like, these meetings that you're talking about, would those not also, for lack of a better term, bring about another meeting or two from questions or from ideas that maybe public has? And that would give
Typically,
you
no,
more
yes.
time, no, okay. That's right.
Typically, people are apathetic. You'll have low attendance, there'll be a couple comments, and you won't hear another thing. That's been my experience in 5
I'm
years.
just wondering, like, you know, if we had several, for lack of a better term, but also younger age people, like you, with younger families that, because I've had several of them contact me whenever that first came out, like, this would be a great idea.
Yeah.
Now, whether or not they'd show up, I don't know. Whether or not another group would show up saying, hey, we don't want anything to do with it, I don't know. that
You will,
either.
I can promise you. you will.
But I'm wondering, is it, what's the best thing? I'm kinda like Jeff, I'd almost like to hear a little bit, I think, from the people and from Eastern. If
We've-
we're,
I
if we're
think we've
kicking,
done
you know,
it.
if we're,
I think we've done a couple resolutions of support. I think
yeah,
this is
we
about my third
have, and that's
try.
what I wondered what
We
this was
tabled
in.
one, remember? We tabled one, didn't we? It was brought up 2 or 3, 4 months ago. I think we tabled something on it.
I don't think it was on this,
Something
but
like this.
One thing we don't wanna lose sight of is, remember, we just basically lost our YMCA for lack of support. I don't know whether it was money or whether it was interest or a combination of both, but you know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
I'm not saying not do it, I'm not saying do it, I'm just saying keep that all in mind when we go to do this. You know, there's people, this won't cost anybody, I guess, like a membership.
Right.
But still, I'm wondering if they won't come out and support and put a little money in for a YMCA to keep it going. Do they really want us to spend tax dollars for this? I realize they're two separate things.
I understand. It'll excite the dickens out of you. I mean, it is really exciting what we could do out there. I mean, it's incredibly exciting. But then there's that, well, you know, if you build it, will they come? My opinion is infrastructure, by and large, is there whether you use it or not. The Horse Brockton Road's there. I mean, if you're not using it, you're not using it. So I see it a little bit differently than something, I know there's operating costs, but at the same time, you know, if there's a sidewalk down by my parents' house on Prairie Street that nobody's using now, there's still a sidewalk there. It's infrastructure. You know what I'm saying? It's there if you need it. I really believe in my heart that that area is gonna, it needs leadership to make sure that it goes. I think it's gonna go. I think there's gonna be a school there, I think there's gonna be a guard there, I think there's gonna be a lot of activity there. That's what I think. And I think that as leadership, I think that you guys have to say, well, what can we do to help promote more? To give everything we can to make sure that this does go well. And I think that we're the only county in the entire state that doesn't have a DNR park. The only county in the entire state. We don't have a state park. Every other county does. I find that odd. And DNR is very sympathetic. They've worked with my administration for 5 years, and they're ripe. I mean, if we get our act together and say, this is what we want and how we want it to happen, I think they're gonna be very, for lack of a better term, sympathetic to the fact that they love that the school's involved. You know, the school's system, the school has a whole trail system on their side over there that they had to shut off due to lack of money. Well, you guys, hypothetically, I'm not proposing this, so I did not propose this, I'm just saying this. You could go over there and build their trail system. And our trail system connects with their trail system. So you've got this trail system over by the school, by this outdoor classroom, and DNR supports and pays for high school biology classes to make plots and to make variable depth media marshes and wetlands, and there's a lot of opportunity there should someone choose to pursue it. And I'm just telling you, as your county engineer, I'm out on the fringes. I'm talking about a path. So, to wrap this up, it sounds like the board's probably not ready to
I don't know. My question was
We've
not
already
to
done this.
delay.
Yeah,
My question wasn't to delay, because, well, first of all, I was listening, didn't hear the March deadline. But I think we could be more enthusiastic if we understood it better. Or we could make a better decision. And then when it comes out in the paper that we've done this, and somebody comes up and says, what are you actually doing? We might be able to answer the question better
Yeah.
and be enthusiastic about it.
Understood. I mean, I could go get the roll plot and show you things, but I think that'd be a study session of its own or something. So would you guys then, I mean, I could scrap 7 altogether, the meeting. I think that folks, we have a huge program, and I think we ought to get the folks, the constituency, and say, look, this is what we're doing, here's how we're spending the money, where we're spending it, and how we're doing it, and here's your chance to participate. But the other half of that, where we talk, isn't that the time to say, oh, and by the way, we were thinking this is kind of a good idea to go out here by the school, and we haven't committed to it, but we're waiting to see what the public thinks? Because our surveys have been, there's a tremendously high level of apathy. So I think, oddly enough, if you're not careful, you'll just hear if there's 10 people, if there's 100 people and 10 of them complain, the only 10 you'll hear from is the ones that complain. The supporters are hidden. There's a lot of people that support this, but they kind of support it quietly. So,
The city isn't involved in participating at all, is it?
they're heavily involved.
I remember an article in the paper about Trish. I think she was talking about, and that was the big thing of that article about, evidently they'd done a survey or,
Yeah, the city of Paris used Eastern to do a recreational survey 2 years ago. And Eastern courted the city and said, we've got these graduate students, can we do that? And they did it. And that survey came back and was the headlines in the paper. And it said that the city of Paris survey has revealed that the people, 95% want a pool and 94% want trails. Overwhelming. It's you never get that. You can't shoot free throws that well. I mean, it's just ridiculous amount of support. So then a year later, I went to Eastern and said, look, we're gonna take this a step further. We want you to make that a county survey. And that you guys have signed up for Eastern's finishing up your survey. Well, the second round, our round went out, and it wasn't a hit out of the park. It couldn't get anybody to even send their surveys back. But it still says the same thing, that the people want it. But if you're getting 300 surveys back out of 1,500 mailed, you have to ask yourself,
Well, that's actually pretty high for return on survey.
yeah, that's probably not bad.
I find it hard to believe if you send out 1,500, you get 94% back.
Right. No, it's 95% that wanted the paths.
All right.
The paths and the outdoor pool. So you've got the splash park. By the way, the path goes down Stidle and hooks to the splash park. And that's the city's part. So you have to have everybody that wants to play
10
together.
people sent it back and 9 of them wanted it.
Yeah.
9.5,
Yeah,
9.4.
right.
So what are you basically saying here, then?
I guess based on what I'm hearing, that we won't do the resolution
Okay,
support.
but
And we'll put
we,
off an
but
hour.
we can still go ahead with
We'll still talk about it.
they'll still have like a public meeting, they'll still do this, that. What I'm saying is, we don't have to throw total support now.
Right,
We can wait till we hear what this meeting's about,
absolutely,
and also wait till we hear what Eastern says,
absolutely.
and then it's just gonna prolong it for a year,
That's right.
basically.
So in December or January this year, next year, we can make a decision.
Yeah, because by that time, then we will have this information, am I understanding you correctly on that?
Absolutely. Yeah, what happens is, we're in crisis mode out here. We just work on the hottest fire,
Mhm.
and we have for 5 years, and this deadline has come up again. And we've got great ideas. We're another year farther along, and, you know, so what we'll do is, there won't be a resolution of support on this meeting. There won't be. We'll punt, which I support. And then we will have a capital improvement plan meeting, and we will have a public involvement meeting, and you guys will go there with open minds. And you'll say, you'll let the constituency help you guys decide whether or not you're gonna support us taking us to the next step. Does that sound fair?
One last question. If you apply for it, will we get it?
We've got a pretty good success rate.
Okay. So it's worth pursuing, it's not.
Well, you have to come up with the money. See, you can trade land. You know, if Barclay's got a piece out there, you know where Barclay's pasture is out there? That nice little, there's a White House sits out there by itself, and there's a real pretty piece of pasture right there that Barclay has on Cherry Point, running around the curve, anybody? Okay, that's a greenway. And then, you know down there by the new bridge, where the creek's running down through there? We would buy to the center of that creek. We own a lot of that already, but we'd buy to the center of that creek, and it'd be greenway. Well, Fleming or Barclay or anybody would donate or not take full value, that's also match. There's a tree line out by the lake. The city has all that property. Well, Kenny farms next to the tree line. Well, if we could get Kenny to give us 10 or 15 foot of that, there's your match. You're done. So, there's a lot of ways to come up with that.
Those are things we all need to know. I
Yeah.
mean, so we're not looking like we're spending money.
Yeah. So that's what we'll do then. We'll, you guys are comfortable hearing this for the first time at this meeting, right? Because they'll present. Eastern and Massey will both present at this meeting and say, oh, look, here's this pie in the sky dream plan that we want to see if anybody wants to get on board with. And, you know, here's the county out here, we got this path out here, and we've got these greenways, et cetera. You're comfortable with that, right? You won't feel, or do you ever try to schedule a pre?
I just want to kind of make sure that we're okay with relaxing a little bit here, listening to this group's tell us really what the plan would be, of what's available, or what's the possibility. Then we go into the next step, and then that may also take you coming back and say, okay, here's where we're at now, here's where we're going to. Jeff says maybe next year, November or whatever, we're making a determination like, yeah, this is a go, or
Okay.
no, it's not a go. Because we will have had this amount of time, plus maybe anything new that comes up within the time frame. Because I know you guys are always
Right,
looking at different ideas and different
Right.
thoughts, and you may have something else, a different tweak
sure,
by that time also.
sure,
But we're okay in doing that.
okay. Does anyone from the board want to speak at the meeting? Or would you be uncomfortable? They're all no's. I thought,
What do you want to say? I mean, what do you want us to say?
it's better if the board delivers it instead of the engineer. I mean, I'll support you and say everything you want to hear, but I'd like it if someone from the board would say,
I am in general, I'd really like to look at this myself. I mean, I think this is something going progressive, going forward. Obviously, of course, spending tons and tons of money, that's something we have to look at very carefully. But I'm thinking that, especially younger people and younger people with kids, it gives them another avenue. It also gives people coming into our community who are in that situation, an avenue to do something with their kids also. So, yeah, I mean, if there's something that needs to be said,
could I get you to
I can't speak
facilitate?
for the whole board, obviously I can speak for Alan Zuber.
We'll just facilitate, you don't have to hardly say anything. Other
Well,
than
That'd be
Consultants
difficult for
maybe
me.
can
Yeah.
offer some things.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think that's a problem. You have to let me know ahead of time when it's gonna be.
Well, then I'm gonna ask you to facilitate the bike path part.
Okay.
And then, if he's gonna be the MC or the facilitator, then you can move into the capital improvement plan. Keller just said, here's Aaron.
I can do that too.
Well, but he did it well. I mean, he's,
We'll figure it out. Yeah, we'll do something. We'll do
Okay, so
what you think is the right thing to do. How's that sound?
and we're gonna do this in the next couple of months. So if you
Good.
guys wanna catch me individually and say, look, this is what I want, for now, I'm gonna say there's two-part capital improvement plan. One's the meat and potatoes, number 5 and number 6 up there. That's the second half hour is 5 and 6. And say, look, this is what we're doing. Anybody got a problem with that? The first half hour is the dreamland, if you wanna call it that. We're gonna come up with a better way to say it, but. Okay, any old business? Anybody wanna talk about anything?
I have one question. We need to resolve, if it hasn't already resolved, because you're chairman of the committee, when it snows, we need to get ESDA, which is a community-based operation, an essential, and the animal shelter dug out.
Right.
Now, if it takes an intergovernmental agreement to do it, whatever, I know the city owns it, we own the buildings, there's a lease, we need to get that resolved.
We finally
So
got
it
it
gets
dug
dug.
out last time, but it took a couple, 3 days.
Yeah, we couldn't get our equipment in.
I
our
talked to
equipment's
you about
away.
it too, and you said there was a problem with, I forget what you said, but.
Well,
you
Jeff's
said it
already,
was-
Jeff's already obviously been looking at it. See,
Yeah,
the property belongs to the city. And their shed's across the street.
yeah, but it's
I
on.
mean, they drive, well, we'll have to go through town to get it, and our equipment's too big. Dirk went out there, I told Dirk as a favor to somebody, I said, just go do it. You know, we're not supposed to do it. Our levies, county highway money, we're not supposed to be
you could with an intergovernmental agreement.
Right. It's
Right.
only 200 feet, I mean, geez.
Yeah, I don't want you guys first of all, I serve at the pleasure of the board. If the board tells me to go dig it out, I go dig it out. Okay, it's that simple. I'm just telling you as your county engineer.
Why
that-
won't the city do
Yeah,
that?
that's my
Right.
point.
And the new folks with the animal shelter and ESDA, we need to have a study session, because we've been here before with the last board.
I know, that's what
There,
and it's
we've
still
got
not
a
resolved.
full drawing to improve the drainage, and
We got a meeting tomorrow evening with those, maybe we can mention
so.
I think we need to go to the city and say, hey,
that. Yeah.
you're
I
across
agree.
the street, it's your
Yeah.
property, why can't you do that?
That's what I
You-
think too.
You got small
That's
enough.
We couldn't get our loader in.
Right.
I'll be
I'm
willing-
not saying
I'll be
using
willing.
it, we just need to get it
All
resolved.
right, I agree.
Does anyone wanna,
I'll go to the city.
you wanna bring that back to life? Cause I've got a lot of work out there that we've played with before. I don't know if you wanna revisit it or not.
Who would be the one I'd talk to? The mayor?
Well, you probably wanna visit with me first, so you get some background on what's going
Why
on.
don't we
Well,
just,
you're, two different issues.
Mhm.
You're talking about the snow removal, he's
Right.
talking about drainage and all
I'm
that
talking
stuff.
Just the snow removal?
Right.
yeah, we're just trying to,
I think what he's gonna tell you is it's your building on his property.
and he's sitting right across the street.
Right.
What is it gonna take to get this resolved? I think that's the way we need to, we can do it as a favor, how are we gonna do this? But our equipment's too big or not flexible enough, we gotta drive right past you to do it.
I agree.
Can you approach him on that
I'll be
basis?
talking to Steve Kemper and,
Talk to him first and then,
okay.
would he talk to, who would he talk to though? Wouldn't it be the city manager? Paul?
Is Steve in
I'd
charge
probably
of
go
streets?
to the mayor.
I'm not sure he's on the city council, but I'm not
Okay.
sure.
Who's
I think
ever
we're
on the
sideways with
streets?
the mayor.
I think who's ever
Is
on the
it-
streets probably could just do it.
I'll work
If
on
they
it.
wanted to.
I'll work on
You probably
Richard
had most
Scott.
of them in
Richard
class.
Scott's in charge of the street.
Is he?
Kemper's in charge of another
Water.
department, I think.
Well,
Okay.
Find
So
out.
Richard Scott, I think, is
Richard,
probably the one you need
100%.
to talk to.
What I would do is talk to the council member that's in charge of streets.
You guys want Dirk to talk to the blue collar guys first and report back to you? Carl?
I'd go talk to the council member.
Okay.
Whatever everybody else thinks.
Well, it's gonna snow some more, so we better get it resolved.
Well, it just seems
Only on the weekends.
ignorant that
it.
it's
That is-
not
I
resolved.
agree.
Do you have any history on the ISDA and the animal shelter plowing that you can share with us? Anything you know's gone on in the past 30 years? Or, do you know who's
We
checking?
haven't plowed it in the last, that I ever remember.
I mean, as someone, what do you remember?
I don't know.
Never.
I'm serious. We've never plowed it that I ever, that I can ever remember.
I'll work on it.
Thank you. I don't have any.
Okay. Any other old business? Any new business? Any public comment?
How many miles of trail are you looking at?
Loaded question. Which phase?
Ballpark, just
5, just round. But you gotta realize that it's not all ours. There's multiple phases, like the counties would be from the Springfield Road, straight down Prairie's Edge, around the corner, down Cherry Point Road, turn the corner at the bridge and go to the high school. That would be the counties, pure counties trails. But the drawings we have, it's got trails wallering up through Black Hawk and behind the school.
just as an input, when I lived up in the suburbs, when they put the trails in through Kane and McHenry County, the big selling point wasn't that they were spending money, it was money that is already taken in their form of taxes, they didn't see a tax increase. And that became a very positive selling point, that there is no tax increase, we're using the tax money we have to provide this for the community. The downside came after the fact with four-wheelers and motorcycles.
Yeah.
And what they were doing is literally running people off the trail as they come running down. So that's something to consider, that, to think about in the future, is how that's gonna be handled. That's all I got for this meeting.
a lot of those funds are not direct tax, I mean, it's still tax money. A lot of them are fees and so forth, like from Pittman Roberts and from Dingle Johnson. That's where the DNR is getting that money from the feds.
Mhm.
And that's like on fishing, hunting, fees that they charge for different parks, and they spread it all over, kind of like the airport, you know, landing fees and so forth. So
It's back to the-
it's still fees, it's still
Right.
taxpayer money.
But it's back to the presentation, and we're not increasing our taxes to do it.
Right.
It's a tough sell. The feds, it's law that they, X amount of dollars are spent on enhancements. So when the federal government gives the state of Illinois money, they set aside this much for enhancement, and if we don't grab it, someone else is.
Right.
So your taxes, Carl, or your buddy there that's complaining, he's gonna spend that money, whether it goes somewhere else or here, or here. It's the legislators, not you guys. If they don't like that they're spending money on, they're laying off teachers but building bike paths, that's a legislator question, not a county board question. And my advice to you is if someone makes grants available to you, that you grab them. That's my advice. Take advantage of, new money is what I call it, new money. Any other public comment? With none, meeting adjourned. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Aaron.
Small meetings, don't be so enthusiastic.
You're gonna address the barking dogs, aren't you?
Yeah, we got that, if he shows up. Anyway,
Well, I think,
Have you talked to sheriff about that?
I think the cheapest thing we can do is go buy a couple bark dogs and lease those out.
Yeah, I know.
Everybody needs
That's
to
what-
attend it.
Might make a little money.
Yeah, I know. That's what I did when, what's his name? I don't know, they work, I don't know.
Oh, yeah. Two yapping now, they got put them on there. Cool, they look
like they might need that.
He's rolling out on the ground.
That's all they cost down, $100, I know. The one I was.
The ones I got are.
Stop
and see Susan by the battery school.
This was one
Lost
that
eyesight, there's one eye
had
back
the
there.
sound that armed dogs in the air, probably on the ear.
This one's got two little things that jump the shit.
And he ended up having
And you have to, what I thought was gonna happen is his brother was gonna start to get the other one shot.
Did that have
But he's gotta feel his
something to
vibration.
do with something
Oh,
or
that's
just?
Throat before.
Yeah, this one's like an
And the
eight.
only thing, good thing about it,
And the other
by
dog
the time he got
across
there,
the
he
street
was just
started
barely
barking, he
attached
pushed
and
the
they was
button.
able to get it
And
back.
it's a sound that's hard on the ears.
Slowly,
I've seen
his
those
eyesight
too.
started to
I don't
come
know
back.
if it worked.
He was off for a month from carrying mail because he didn't see it,
No,
do anything.
I don't think that's, we don't have noise or anything.
They said it might take a year for it to
Back
come back,
home,
and maybe
they-
75% of the motion would come back.
Yeah,
So that,
or put out a little
no, be a
extra
problem.
flavor.
Regardless, because one of them
That's
seeing
not
a
a good
different
idea.
Right.
size and level or
Depth perception, the
Yeah.
problem is pulling up to the mailbox, he'd pull up and he thought he was there and he was that far away from
Neighbors,
him.
what if they have
there's
or
cats and
something they
birds
can put in
and
that eye?
deer and
Do anything
It's
like
getting
that?
there.
Or is that pretty good?
so who's in charge of meeting today?
If I can
You ready, Alder?
Chairman?
Oh, okay.
We'll go ahead and get started. Public comment on our study session.
I have some comments. These comments are regarding the airport project. In the calendar year of 2011, the Edgar County Airport purchased both Jet A fuel and 100 low-lead aviation gas. They made these purchases from Superior Fuels of Newton, Illinois. The actual amounts of fuel, types of fuel, and delivery dates were revealed to me within the results of a FOIA request. In 2011, these purchases totaled $134,411.69. In 2011, Chris Patrick, owner of Zimmerly Ready Mix, had been a member of the Edgar County Airport Advisory Board for many years and was the presiding chairperson for that board. Chris Patrick had been instrumental in the hiring of Jimmy Wells and Lisa Gill. Chris Patrick had also been known to control all aspects of the airport operation, to be Jimmy Wells' best friend and confidant. In February 2012, just 2 months after the year's end, Jimmy Wells submitted a request for an apron and fuel farm expansion project worth upwards of $1 million. This was submitted to the Division of Aeronautics As we all know, that project was eventually approved this past fall 2013. A few weeks ago, I provided a copy of Jimmy Wells' application to each of you during a public meeting. That application was signed by Jimmy Wells, the former airport manager, and Jim Keller, the former county board chairperson. Therefore, each county board member here is completely aware of the details of this application. This county board has affirmed its continued support of the project by providing funds for said project. This is in spite of the obvious defects and fraudulent claims found within these documents. These facts have been brought to your attention time and again. In this situation, as board members, you cannot allege ignorance of the facts or innocence when challenged in our court system. You are now accomplices in this fraud, you are complicit, you are partners, and each of you will share in the consequences. Consider this. In every year of county service, Chris Patrick should not have been on the Airport Advisory Board or functioning as a chairman, because this was a conflict of interest. In 2011 and in subsequent years, he and his company, Zimley Ready Mix, would either be supplying or bidding on concrete supplied at the airport or county projects. Chris Patrick used his position on the Airport Advisory Board and as a chairperson to influence the selection and implementation of projects at the airport. Chris Patrick and his company, Zimley Ready Mix, would also gain financially in any sales of his company products made to the county or at the Edgar County Airport. In February 2012, Jimmy Wells submitted an application for a federally funded fuel farm and apron project at the Edgar County Airport. This was a deliberate attempt to defraud our federal government of nearly $1 million and was based on a flawed justification. In these documents, Jimmy Wells alleges a hardship caused by the use of only a 1,000-gallon Jet A fuel tank. In the year of 2011, and under a FOIA demand, fuel purchased for that year indicate over 7,300 gallons of Jet A fuel was routinely delivered to the airport. These are the facts, so tell me, how do you deliver 7,300 gallons of Jet A fuel into a 1,000-gallon fuel tank? Maybe the fuel supplier never did deliver that fuel. In these documents, Jimmy Wells further alleges the average monthly fuel sales for the airport to be 5,500 gallons of fuel. In the year of 2011, and under a FOIA demand, fuel purchases for that year clearly indicate this isn't true. Approximately 3,100 gallons of fuel were sold monthly. In these documents, Jimmy Wells alleges there were 35 airplanes in residency, in operation, and eligible for justifying airport improvements. Another deception. Under FOIA demand, this county was unable to produce any records used at the time this particular claim was made. Not one. In contrast, former RSB aviation employees will testify as to the number of aircraft present at the airport for this purpose, as will many other plane owners. The most accurate count we have available indicates there were 15 aircraft in 2011 and in 2012, 16 aircraft in 2013, and 11 aircraft at the beginning of the year 2014. In these documents, Jimmy Wells uses the false number of 35 aircraft and calculations provided by the Division of Aeronautics to claim a need for 3,000 plus square yards of concrete apron and additional projects. This quantity of concrete could easily be worth as much as $175,000 for a Lucky Concrete Company. These are the claims that you, as a county board member, have embraced, endorsed, and sanctioned. These documents received under FOIA demand have been happily turned over to a federal investigator. Under pressure from others, and as a matter of record, I have been asked to restate the following. Before this goes any further, you may simply notify the Division of Aeronautics of your desire to withdraw the county's application. I will also comment on two additional points. Radio station 98.5 will continue to advise its listeners of the Edgar County Airport fraud and direct its listeners to the Edgar County Watchdog website until the airport issue is properly resolved. There may be other radio stations joining in. You should expect to hear your names on the radio as Edgar County board members in the future and find them associated with the fuel reports of 211 and the fraudulent fuel farm application. 2. When the county board is found in violation of the Open Meetings Act regarding the December 6th meeting, that information will be made available to the county voters also. Thank you for listening.
I make a question on one thing.
Yes,
that you
sir.
brought. On the apron, didn't we change that, when that changed the asphalt instead of concrete? In the,
Yeah, we don't know.
pardon?
We don't
I
know.
might have an issue for
I
you on
think
that.
it was made at the meeting. Well,
I don't
I could
recall
be
that.
wrong, but I think it was changed from concrete to asphalt, but that's just my point. Not that it makes that much difference, but it does if you're talking about,
That's not what was, I found in the documents that Jimmy submitted in February 2012.
My turn. Who's the chairman today? That's you.
Go ahead, John.
First thing, I would like to ask that if you prefer people not stand up during meetings, that you adjust your meeting policy or public speaking policy and tell people to stay seated or whatever you would like to do. And the other thing is, this here is completely shameful. Everybody that went to the courthouse and just hanged their head for 2 or 3 years in shame. Because reading that, and I've already ordered the transcripts.
What is it?
what is it?
It's not completely truthful.
What is that, John?
What is it?
What paper is that?
This will be case number 2014 OP8. I think you guys know what it is.
No.
Order of protection
Oh,
filed. You know, and I'll be brief. Claiming somebody's should be considered armed and dangerous and suicidal and mentally unstable. I mean, come on. I don't think any of you are psychiatrists. So, if you want to consider somebody mentally unstable, somebody that lies and connives behind the scenes all the time might be considered unstable, and especially if they show up to county board meeting with as a member with a weapon on them. That's all I have.
Just a couple things real quick. I'm sure most of you remember the meeting where the sheriff so politely escorted me out of a meeting at the direction of Chris Patrick. The Attorney General has made their determination on that it was in fact a violation of the Open Meetings Act. I've had 2 individuals, 2 board members that apologized for that action. This represents that the board has apologized for the actions of Mr. Patrick. I don't recall the board ever making any comment on it, but I think we all know it was wrong, and I would appreciate a public apology for the way that that was handled, because not one board member stood up in that meeting and said, no, this is wrong. And it was wrong. And if we're gonna move forward and make things right, that would be a good step, because now it's been documented that you guys did that. I have no record of that ever happening.
What is that?
It's just the Attorney General's opinion on the Open Meetings Act.
Can I approach that? Just kidding.
Basically, it was a medical emergency.
Right.
The meeting was stopped. My right to continue speaking was violated, which also is a federal civil rights issue of my First Amendment rights. And I have 2 years to pursue that action if need be. I don't think that's necessary to do that. I just want a simple apology from the board, like it says it was already done in the letter.
You got this, Augie? According to this, you got an email on this?
Maybe Friday. I got it Friday. I think I got it
Is that the
Friday.
copy of what you're talking about, Kirk, that John just gave you?
Yeah,
that's-
Okay, yes, I just got that Friday, and I apologize, I did not make copies for everybody.
that was late Friday.
It was late Friday afternoon or Friday. It was after 5, I think, when I got my copy.
And I do believe that Kirk Duart is accurate, that we did make an apology in the letter, but we have not verbalized that or vocalized that in a
Or made it
public setting.
public, yeah.
Made it public, right.
Correct. That's all I'm asking. I think that's fair enough.
Well, well, I see it. Let's make a copy for everybody, and then we can maybe address that next Wednesday's meeting, if the board feels like we need to.
Thank you.
Augie, if you can
I'm noting that, I'll be glad to do that.
make copies before we leave here, so everybody can have it. Or have
I'll ask Brenda. to do
Brenda,
that.
if she can, and we'll go from there. Any other public comments? Yes, Ed?
Just got one quick one. I just heard somebody mention
board members having weapons on. I would hope right now, when asked, that no one here on the board has a weapon, or anybody else, unless you have a CCW in your pocket.
Can't even have that.
Sorry, I never made a claim that it happened, never did, but here had it, so.
Thank you.
I know at one time, one of your deputies came out here and searched one of the county board members. I don't know if you're aware of that or
Just basing on what,
not. Right,
actually just now, on what I just heard.
Right.
I make sure that no one here right now, after, in lieu of what has happened in the past, is on carries unless you go to CCW.
Well, Mr. Sheriff, you can't come into a government building, even if you do have a CCW, can you?
No.
Courthouse you cannot. It hasn't been stated you cannot walk into any other county building yet, so. I haven't seen it yet, I mean, I'm not saying it's not, you can look it up later.
Any other comments? You have anything? Okay. Other, next item is county engineer, I don't know, do we
He's
have
done.
any?
Yeah, and that was just a miss on my part. I didn't take it off the last agenda. Since he made his presentation, there is no county engineer report today.
Committee reports. Mr. Brenner?
We have a meeting at noon with Andrea and the animal shelter, so. I think we have one person who lives in the county is bringing up another barking dog problem, so we still don't have an ordinance. And I don't know if you want to work on an ordinance as a county board. Problem with that is we don't have the necessary personnel or the probably finances to check every dog barking problem in the county, so. There's other ways it can be solved, I think, besides an ordinance. I know the city has an ordinance. I checked with Jamie Littleton about the one they have. It's 4 lines. They do have a substantial fine if the problem exists or continues, but his comment was that you really don't try to enforce it very much. They try to get it where the neighbors can work out the problem, so that's just my feeling. But it will be brought up probably again today. It's the second and third one we've had in the county. So I don't know what your feeling is on it.
I don't think there's a need for an ordinance.
Well, the surrounding counties don't really have much of an ordinance anyway. If they do have an ordinance, it's not enforced very often, so my comment to him will be that hopefully we can work it out between the neighbors. So,
Most of those ordinances are from like 10 o'clock at night till.
Right, and that's not what, he said that the sheriff's department has took care of that problem, and he indicated that the daytime is the problem.
right, but a lot of people work during the daytime and not home to hear the dogs bark, which, you know, is really a reason to not have them bark. But the last one we had, both people had retired and they were home during the daytime, and the problem didn't exist at nighttime because the lady or whoever had the dogs put the dogs back up in the garage. But if you're home in the daytime and the dogs are out, the dogs are gonna bark.
Do you know if Mike Mattingly, Mike, has he contacted you about the problem during the daytime barking that you're aware of?
Got a text from him later that evening. Rick lives across the street. I think Rick went over to talk to him,
Talk to Mike, or the neighbor?
the neighbor.
Okay, all right. Okay.
And then we'll work on the clearing out the road when we have snow. We got it taken care of last time, but it took a couple of days to get it done, so hopefully we can get something
I mean, the
going.
one just like this past week?
No, this was the one before.
Okay, well, the one just the other day,
Yeah, I didn't,
Whatever
nobody
day
called me
it
about that
snowed.
one, so I don't know.
I was out there the next day and it was all plowed out.
Okay.
I have no idea who did it, but it
Okay.
was plowed out.
But I'll talk to Andrew today and see what happens.
So I don't know whether the city did it, probably not, but or whether they hired
But they got it
someone,
done, yeah.
but it was done.
Okay, good.
Mainly it was real good around the animal shelter, but they just made one pass into ESTA.
Right.
They didn't really clean the parking lot, they just made one pass and that was it.
That's what she said the last time we had the snowstorm, that they came through and they piled the snow up, but I don't know who did it, maybe the, whatever you use is too large to actually get it done the way it should have been done. So. But they did have it plowed out about 2 days later, so we'll work on it.
Okay.
Other than that, no, nothing else. As the meeting tomorrow evening, 6.
Okay. Mike?
That's what I was gonna say, as the meeting tomorrow at 6 to talk to, since everybody probably knows that Kit left, last day was Friday. The interim director is Jill, I can't think of her last name.
Taylor.
And she's, we're gonna meet with her and just chat with her, see what her feelings are, if she's even willing to fill in until we appoint somebody permanent, and then maybe discuss that project or that prospect of how we're gonna ask for resumes or put an ad in the paper or whatever for either a director or a new director or assistant director or whatever. So those are just some of the things that we're gonna talk about.
Okay.
You guys are all welcome if you wanna come out there and be involved in it.
Mr. Zuber?
Just a couple things on the insurance. We have with our insurance people that we work with Bushu, when I have different issues come up, one of the things is that we're talking about risk management and things, and so I've asked them about a couple different issues. One is when we decide to start adopting animals, if there was something in there that it's okay for us to do, not okay for us to do, and they sent me back a sheet, which I've tried to pass on to as many different people as possible, email-wise, and then he has to send it out to whoever or whatever, but they've given us some ideas on probably maybe like a policy or something that we ought to do to make sure that we're kind of covered, and that even like Andrea, one of our employees is covered, that type of stuff. So I think hopefully she'll bring that along today, or we'll
I've got
discuss that.
time to.
Yeah. So we'll talk on that. The other thing is kind of odd, Sheriff was talking about here, an item that was discussed at a county symposium type meeting type thing is this issue of concealed carry and what it means as it impacts into public bodies, public buildings, and things of that nature. And so I've got them kind of looking at that to see, because it is relatively new for the state of Illinois. Are there things that we do need to adopt or not? I know in the past, sometimes because we all glean on our past, sometimes the state of Illinois just said, you have to do this, and you have to adopt this policy to our school boards at different times. I'm not sure exactly how that may or may not work with the county, but we're at least on the preliminary stage, and we're getting information from our insurance advisor on it.
When I took the concealed carry class, they kept telling us where we could not carry, and public buildings were at the top of the list.
Yeah, but then I appreciate hearing that, Jeff, because that's kind of what I was hearing, and that's what I thought too. But we also may need to adopt certain policies or even procedures, even though it's like the law. That's what we found out in the past before. Even though certain things are the law, believe it or not, we still have to have a policy to deal with that from a risk management standpoint, so we can at least say, God forbid something terrible happens, no, we had this on here. So those are my two main things on the insurance right now.
I did hear back from Bierup. Bob Bierup was the primary with our past audit firm. The last meeting, we had been directed to check with them about a statement in the 2010 or 11 audit regarding the ambulance service. And at this point, he needs some additional information, but based on what he's seen so far, the note reasonably is not completely accurate. But in order to make a correction, he needs a couple of more documents, which the treasurer is going to get to him, and then he'll make a final determination of how they should correct the audit as far as that's concerned.
You said the note's not what?
The note reasonably is not completely correct. It refers,
When you say a note, what do you mean?
the note in the audit,
Okay.
the note is, I think, note 12 or note 22 on page.
Oh, so it's not the
12.
$100,000, okay.
Yeah,
We're talking
what-
about
That's what you're talking about.
Right. we're not talking, see, what's confusing is the 100,000 for the purchase and the 100,000 that we keep in reserve in case there's an issue. Of that 100,000, 40-some thousand was spent, and this is years ago, to buy equipment and do things. The board asked or required the ambulance service to pay back that money at $800 a month. And somehow those things have gotten squished together and make you believe one is part of the other, and it's not. What they're trying to do is separate it out and say that this is this and this is this. And just clarify what was done and not make any judgments about it, but accurately convey what has actually happened. And they're agreeing that that was not accurately conveyed in the audit at this point. But in order to put it correctly, they needed the original service agreement and the purchase agreement. So,
Are they billing us for this?
no. The other thing is, we sent the attorney, state's attorney a copy of the agreement that Jim Mills had with the airport over in Terre Haute. Ask him to dissect it, see if that would be a good basis on which to use as a contract, with the disclaimer above, meaning he said we have to negotiate what he's actually gonna do and what he's actually gonna pay. He says that this is a solidly structured for the airport committee to work with. Once the details under each of the articles are fleshed out, then we will revisit the contract. So he believes that that contract is a good, workable contract with modifications,
Right.
okay?
Much better,
Much
than,
better.
than what the other,
Yes,
Yes,
yes, it's
right.
actually stronger
yes,
lease.
right.
So,
I briefly talked to him Friday about it.
okay, good, because I hadn't had a chance to talk to you about it. So,
Right.
one of the things that Dale is doing now is talking to Jim in getting a paragraph that Jim thinks would adequately project to us so we can negotiate with him about what he wants to do there. In other words, Article A of the contract says that the leasee shall do this, 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 or be allowed to do this, then this. And what he's trying to get out of Jim and Peggy is what that paragraph might look like from their standpoint. So we can start, that's the first thing we have to start with. And so that's what he's doing. Okay?
Okay.
I don't have anything on finances, I didn't have time to fly by there. There is one more thing, go ahead.
You and I spoke briefly about maybe figuring out some formula on the energy costs up there.
Yes.
And everybody's probably got an idea on how to do that, but we need to make sure that the county's not getting, like LP went up, we need to make sure that somehow or another he's gonna absorb that, or whoever's gonna.
It either has to, well, you talked about a separate meter or percentage of the meter.
Yeah, right.
So that as the cost goes up and down,
Right.
we don't continue to gig some, I mean, it
Right.
works out both ways.
I think in the building he's in, if I'm right on that, he's got, everything's metered electric in that building, so obviously the advisory board over there, or the airport board doesn't care.
Right.
It's just whatever it is, he pays it and that's it, water and everything, sewer. So if that's the case, we need to consider that.
The other thing I did check with, and I called back Worley from Hanson's, was I wanted to find out where we were at on the money that we would owe them as the engineering went forward. And basically what he explained to me was we would not owe their company anything until after the first of next year, in January or February next year. At the time, they're gonna plan on letting in December or January, and at that point, that's when everything is put together, and then that's when they would bill for the engineering. So we do not have to worry about a note at this point to pay those fees.
So basically, everything's gonna would happen in 2015.
That's correct. So I thought everybody would be interested from that standpoint.
And so far as you know, that project's full steam ahead, and
That's
that's
correct.
okay.
That's according to Worley. Joe.
You know if Dale's around this week?
He said he was not going to be, let's see, hang on.
Which Dale are you talking about?
Dale.
I left him, let's
Are
see.
you referring to the ambulance service? I was gonna ask a question.
I
I'm on the
am
committee.
unavailable next, he wrote this on February 5th, which was last Wednesday. I am unavailable next week, but could meet this Friday, meaning last Friday. So he is not available this week at all. He was available last Friday,
Yeah, I know, because we had to cancel the meeting Thursday because we had a funeral coming up
I know,
and was gonna reschedule for this week, but he's not here again.
yeah.
Where are we at on the ambulance? 'Cause I'm on that committee, but I've never had a meeting or heard anything, so I didn't know. It's
I know
in
he-
April, isn't it?
I know Dale was, no, it's
Okay,
end of May, 1st of June.
okay. I've never
I can't answer
heard
the
of a
question,
meeting.
though.
Okay, I just asked.
We're
How do you
gonna
want
have to
to
just get together.
Without him?
Yeah, we're gonna have to have some items for the agenda, aren't we? Or at least we should. I mean, at least talk about it. It's up to you, Carl. I just hate to let it just
Right.
continue to ride.
Well, this Thursday or Friday is the only time I can do it, in the afternoon,
It's fine. You name the time, Carl.
1 o'clock.
Thursday?
Thursday.
We'll,
night for me.
We need to check with Dale Barkley,
Okay.
because he needs to be there. to have
He
him.
said he was open this week, but we need to verify.
After the meeting, we'll check with him, and then,
Oh, okay, this is not the ambulance.
You guys talking airport?
Yeah.
Okay, I
Yes.
thought you meant
I
ambulance.
just wanna make
Okay,
sure.
fine, okay, thank you.
you know. So we'll check with him after the meeting and find out a time that's convenient for him, and then we'll notify all of you.
Right. Okay?
And the board members that are here, if you have any suggestions or ideas on airport advisory board members, and actually the airport advisory, their duties, let members of the airport committee hear your concerns.
I've talked to a few people that are interested, so they probably know the same names I know. so.
But the duties,
I saw
what,
most of the.
what your
duties.
duties,
Yeah, I saw-
what you think.
yeah,
I will make a note, in reading that 71 document, and I talked to
yeah, that's good.
Mike about it, it seems like the duties of that advisory board almost
Mhm.
meet the duties of what the airport manager would be.
Yeah,
Do you see what I'm saying?
Mhm, right.
And maybe in some way that can be reworked so that they're to assist us and the airport manager in the carrying out of the function as the airport. I know it sounds, you wouldn't want to use cheerleader,
Right,
but a resource for both information, public support.
right.
And that seems to me, we could almost use that 5 or 6 or 8 things to use as the airport manager job description, rather than putting the advisory board in that position. But that's just my opinion, if you read that.
Has everybody got copies of that?
Yeah.
I know I gave them to you in the past.
So we still don't really have a consensus, or do we, on the advisory board as an entity? Or is that a part of the requirement
It is
of our
not.
policy? It's not, is it?
Not a requirement, no.
And so that's what you're looking for, is if we have it, and then what would be the duties
Right.
of that? It is allowed,
Yes.
correct? It is
We-
allowed.
Yeah, the state attorney
So
said we
have-
can appoint a board committee for anything.
About anything.
Yeah,
But-
as long as they don't have fiscal responsibilities. But I think the majority of the people feel like there's a need for it to give us some input to help us make decisions.
But again, I don't think they fall in the same category as like the health department, which
Right.
has its own budget, its own.
Same way 911.
Right, they have their
Right.
separate, you find the airport budget within our, if they don't have a separate levy,
Right.
I mean, they're within our auspices and our budget, Fund 100, which I don't think we can abrogate our duties, not that we do with the other ones, because we still participate, but, okay?
So if you have any suggestions, contact us and let us know, or come to the meeting if you wanna. Okay? Anybody else have anything?
one other thing back on the insurance part, I've been also working with Travis to try to get him to possibly come to a meeting. I don't know if it's gonna be as soon as the February meeting or not, Bushu, our insurance consultants, but actually come to a study session and just give us an overview of where we're at, where we're going to, some things that he still needs. I think we met a time or two with Augie's office and stuff like that, or came up here one time, then also was talking back and forth, but I think he may still need some more information. But just to have a question, because that way his board members will have a chance to ask them, where are we, or what should be going on next, so.
If you
hopefully at
could
some
add
study
to that
session.
meeting, also, I mean, the first upcoming, other than work comp, but which is faces it every month, the insurance for our folks, health insurance issue, is gonna have to be something that we're gonna plan for very early. We can't be waiting till June or July to figure that thing out.
And as we all know, we talked, I think, about that the last time, the increase of the Affordable Care Act and what it basically did for us, and I tried to send that
We need
around
to
too.
know our options.
Yeah, and I'm not sure we're gonna have some options.
I know, but at least we need to know that.
It's just gonna be more cost. I'm just telling you right now, it's just gonna be more cost. And, you know, we'll have to figure out how much we're gonna have to pull out of that to count that. It just is. So that, sorry about that.
Well, I talk about extra costs. I got the 911 packet this weekend, and in there, there's additional costs. I think it's either $20 a pay period or $20 a month, extra costs due to the Affordable Care Act for the 911 coordinators' health insurance or some type of health, I assume it's health insurance.
Right. Yes.
Because that's something that everybody's
Yeah,
getting
there's an
assessed.
assessment basically to people kind of thing, and also to the employer. And that was the first part. Next year, other things will kick in. That's one of the reasons I want to have somebody like Travis explain it, answer questions, tell you what's going on. This was kind of the first year, and that was really the small part, probably. I hate to say that. That was probably the small part to get the program, quote unquote, up and running. As Jeff has alluded to, we're gonna have to make probably some hard and fast decisions on future employment, how that goes. Do we give a stipend for insurance? We have to give something, because next year it's gonna kick in where if you're not giving an authorized amount, basically, or an amount that's considered okay by the federal government, then you're gonna be paying money. You're gonna be paying out per individual policy. But again, I'd really like for Travis to pound that out and explain that to you.
And the more we all understand, the better our decisions
Yeah,
are gonna
and not only that, because that way you can pinpoint him, and that's what we paid him for, in my mind. So
And what's
I
gonna
wanna
be
use them.
difficult is we have contractual obligations and we have non-contractual obligations. And we gotta figure out how we're gonna deal with all that in a square way.
So anyway, my plans are for him to come to a study session, and because I figure we can spend as much time then
During planning.
that we want to, yeah. Hopefully not.
I'm just,
Maybe the next one.
We probably could not have had that meeting last Thursday anyway because of the parking lot.
Yeah, that's what I think too.
And I hope the camera is running because Ben showed up and I showed up and Ben got stuck and I had to push him out with the help of some good citizens that were happened to be passing by. So Ben, you owe me.
Are you trying to get a workman's comp out of this?
Well,
Is that what you're saying, or-
Actually, no, but that does bring a point.
Just plow out
We need to
the-
have arrangements for somebody to plow that building out also.
Are you talking about Crackman?
Correct
Yes.
building.
Oh,
yeah, it was a wreck.
Yeah. I mean, if I wasn't in four-wheel drive, I mean, you just,
we don't have a piece of equipment that plow it, do we? The county.
no.
County trucks could, but there again,
Yeah,
they're not supposed to.
It's county property, isn't it?
Is it tax,
County or
is
city?
it a road?
yeah. Yeah,
What, do they plow the parking lot here?
they didn't clean the sidewalk.
No, they didn't, did they?
Did you follow my footsteps?
Yeah.
When I'm looking out, I take about 15 steps before I realize it.
with
I
it.
didn't wanna say anything.
That's something that, yeah, you're right, it needs to be addressed, cause I was thinking about that myself that day.
Well,
And it may be that we have somebody that we contract with that just
Right.
takes care of that. And we might meld it together if we're still having issues over at the other, and they just do it. It's negotiated.
And on that, would it be the type of thing that we really need to have that all done? Because some of the guys in town will work on as needed, or if we have somebody who's our focal point, to call them and say, we need it out.
Yeah, if we're not
There
having
may
a
be a
meeting,
thing,
there's
no
no-
sense
Yeah.
spending 80 or
Yeah.
$100.
No, I agree.
If we don't, in my mind,
If
if
we
we're
don't.
not having a meeting, because we don't
Right,
really,
if
want-
it's
I
over
don't
the
think we have to worry
Christmas
about
break.
liability there, but.
The sheriff had something with,
Oh, Bob, I had Bob go down one time. We get down there with the pickup and the trailer, we can take our tractor and go down, it's not that big of a lot.
Wouldn't need the
Speaking
whole
of that,
lot anyway.
I want to tell, if you pass this along to Bob too, I heard about 3 different
I did
compliments on how nice that
Right.
was all the way around the square
Yeah, Ned
and up to
Johnson.
the courthouse on the snow stuff.
Right,
He said he was out there going to town, so that was
yeah. Tell
That was
Bob we
pretty neat.
appreciate it.
pretty neat to hear.
Yeah.
I know what, are we done with snow?
No.
No, it's coming.
I hope
You
so.
know.
Next weekend, yeah, sure.
Yeah, we're done with it
We're done
already.
I know that we are not going to meet again prior to the next board meeting. And a couple items that are queued up for the agenda, but we don't have the agenda made yet. Number one is the folks from Bellwether have completed their study, they have their recommendations, they have significant not savings, but enhancements, we might put it that way.
That's a good way.
Are you talking about fees and
I'm
fines?
talking about fees and cost study and whatnot. They're gonna present, they would like to present at the next board meeting. As short as we wanna keep it, that's up to us. But that's their final appearance. And they'll have all the documents supposedly forwarded to me ahead of time. I'll try to get that put into your board packets. But we're talking somewhere between $140,000 and $160,000 of found revenue that could be implemented in the form of fees. So we'll have to digest all that and look through that. The other thing is we have a request from the Christmas community people that we did last year. They're going to have their and from the hotel motel fund.
Spring fling
Spring
thing,
fling thing.
or whatever it is.
We did that, so that's that.
He should be here too. Robert Allen Hale.
Is he gonna be on the, he wants to come?
Yeah, he would like, he
Presentation.
couldn't last year and he apologized, but he's
How'd that thing go last year? Was
pretty
it-
good. And the weather was really cold.
I remember the weather wasn't
But
really
it
good.
did real well. We had a lot of folks there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it went off well.
Yeah, good.
Our quote-unquote local historian, Butch Parrish, has really been working really diligently through my office in the old records. And he's come across the original supervisor book, or whatever it's called at that time, and it's pretty ratty and pretty delicate. And he wants to come and ask you, the board, if it's okay for him to pursue a grant to get that book rebound and preserved. And I appreciate what Butch is doing, because that is our history, and that is it's in my vault, and I'm the keeper of those records. I said, go after it, if it's a 100% grant and there's money for that. But anyway, he asked if he could be put on the agenda to come talk to the board, and I invited him to a study session. He said, no, I want to come to a board meeting. I said, okay, Butch, I'll let the folks know. We also have someone out at the housing authority, the high rise on the board, retired, And I have a recommendation for a replacement from another, it was a resident, that I guess they're required to have a in-house or a resident person on that board. Well, that person retired, well, another resident volunteered to fill out the term. I'll have that. We still need to appoint a replacement for Mike Wright, who retired from that board January 1st.
Were they gonna make a recommendation?
I've not communicated with John Hollis to that effect.
I was thinking, didn't Ben say something about that? That they were gonna make a recommendation or asked him to or something?
I don't recall.
I don't recall.
I'll do it.
I know that.
Write that down. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
And I also have the letter here from Kit Kirby on her resignation, so we need to officially act upon that.
When was her last? Does anybody know? when?
Friday was
It
the
was
last.
Friday.
day.
Oh, she's already done.
Yeah. Those are the things that I have, when Ben's feeling better, we can get, excuse me, let me clarify. Ben is not here today because he has the flu, and he has the stomach flu.
No, my wife
And I
had
told
that.
him to
She still has it.
stay away or we'd have the sheriff
Yeah.
escort him at the edge of the building here. Yeah, I-
The health department has a name for replacement, but I'm not sure they have an answer from this person yet. So if they do, they should probably be contacted or
For
to
the
see-
board, Jeff?
for the board, yes. So I don't know where that sits, but since Dale isn't here, I thought I'd mention that that's something we need to follow up on and fill that position if they have a final selection or recommendation. Okay?
And then also, just so everybody knows, we are now voting in-person absentee. So the voting center is open.
Anybody else have anything? Okay, then, motion to adjourn.
Do you need a closed session?
Oh, yes. Does anybody feel need for closed session? Anything that needs to be brought up in closed session?
You can see it as it is.
Sale price or sale of lease or anything? No? Okay.
All right, motion to adjourn.
So,
So moved.
Second. Motion approved.
Who's,
All those in
who's the
favor?
first and second?
Mr. Brenner and Mike seconded. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned.
wife's on the test.